Hello and welcome to my channel Happy Hours. In my last video I discussed about the emergency and its different provisions in India, about Comptroller and Auditor General of India and national and state parties. This is the last video of this series, and today I am going to discuss about the Public Service Commissions, their qualifications, duties, powers, etc. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump to the first topic, which is the Public Service Commission. It is a constitutional body which conducts the exams to appoint the civil servants. According to the article number 315 clause 1, which provides for UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, and Public Service Commission for each state, and article number 315 clause 2 provides for the Joint Public Service Commission and Public Service Commission for 2 or more states. A Joint Public Service Commission can be established by the Parliament for 2 or more states on the request of the legislatures of the concerned states. Now let us understand what are the qualifications of the members. At least 50% of the members of the Public Service Commission shall be the persons who have held office for at least 10 years, either under the Government of India or under the government of any state. The term of members is 6 years of service or 65 years of age, whichever is earlier, and this is for the Union Public Service Commission. Whereas for State Public Service Commission or for the joint commissions, 6 years of services or 62 years of the age, whichever is earlier. UPSC members are appointed by the President. PSC members are appointed by the Governor. Now let us understand the next point, which is the removal of members of PCS. By the President it is done, and for UPSC and as well as for PCS, both are removed by the President. There are 2 articles according to this. For this, first is article number 317 clause 1, where the member of the PSC can be removed by the President on the ground of misbehavior. But before removing a member, on the ground of misbehavior, the President shall refer the matter to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, after conducting an inquiry, must have reported the member that he or she is ought to be removed. So here basically everything depends on the Supreme Court. Next is under the article number 317 clause 3. A member of PSC can be removed on the following grounds. First is if he is adjudged as an insolvent, means he is bankrupt. Secondly, if he holds other office of profit. And thirdly, infirmity of mind or body, means he is somewhere not sound of mind. Next, what are the functions of the PSC? If it got 2 types of functions. First is administrative function and second is advisory function. Now let us discuss each one of them one by one. First is administrative function. It is the duty of the UPSC and the state PSC to conduct examinations for the appointment for the services of the union and of the state respectively. It is the duty of the UPSC, if requested by any 2 or more states, to assist those states in framing and operating scheme of joint recruitment for any service for which the candidates having special qualifications are required. Next is the advisory functions. The UPSC or state PSC shall be consulted in the following matters. First, on all matters relating to the methods of recruitment to the civil services and for civil posts. Secondly, on the principles to be followed in making appointments to the civil services and posts and in making promotions and transfers from one service to another, and on the suitability of the candidate for such appointments, promotions or transfers. Next is on all disciplinary matter affecting a person serving under the Government of India and Government of any state in the civil capacity. Next is very important topic, and that is what are the safeguards provided to maintain the independence of the PSCs. A member of PSC can be removed only on the grounds and in the manner mentioned in the Constitution. Secondly, terms and conditions of offices of the members of the PSC cannot be altered for his disadvantages during the term of office. And thirdly, the chairman of the UPSC is ineligible for further employment either under the government of India or under the government of a state. And as far as the chairman of the state PSC and other member of PSCs are concerned, they can hold office inside the PSC and not outside it. Means there is a hierarchy and they can be joined in different posts in that particular PCS posts. Next, we are having the elections. This is the foundation of democracy. Are conducted in India by following methods. First is first past the post system and second is proportional representation system. The first past the post system is for the Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly, whereas the proportional representation system is for president election, vice president election and member of the Rajya Sabha. Now let us understand the constitutional provisions with respect to elections. First is the article number 324. It is for the election commission. Article number 325. It is for the single electoral roll or single voters list for the constituency. Article number 326. Universal adult suffrage to be the basis of Lok Sabha and legislative assembly elections. Article number 327 authorizes the parliament to make laws relating to elections, and the article number 328 authorizes the legislature of a state to make laws with respect to the state elections. Now we are having the next topic, which is the election commission. The body which conducts the election is known as election commission. It is a constitutional body mentioned in the article number 324, established on 25th Jan 1950. This day is observed as National Voters' Day. The objective of observing this day is to create awareness among the people regarding their voting right and to encourage them to take part in voting. The Election Commission was originally a single member body consisting of a chief election commissioner. On 16th October 1989, for the first time, the two additional election commissioners were appointed. They had a very short tenure till 1st January 1990. On 1st October 1993, two additional election commissioners were appointed and the concept of multi-member commission has been in operation since then. The decision in the commission is taken by the consensus or by majority vote. The chief election commissioner and the other election commissioners are appointed by the president. The chief election commissioners and the other election commissioner appointment, duration of service and term of office this bill was passed by the Parliament in 2023. According to this act, the CEC means Chief Election Commissioner and the other two election commissioners shall be appointed from amongst the persons who are holding or have held a post equivalent to the rank of Secretary to the Government of India and shall be persons of integrity who have knowledge of and experience in the management and conduction of election. Secondly, the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioner to be appointed by the President on the recommendation of a selection committee headed by the PM. And it consists of Union Cabinet Ministers, leader of opposition or a leader of largest opposition party in the Lok Sabha. So basically we can understand in the selection committee, the PM is the head and the Union Cabinet Ministers are the member and the other member is the leader of the opposition or a leader of largest opposition party in the Lok Sabha. The CEC, the Chief Election Commissioner, can be removed in the same manner as the Supreme Court judge is removed. The other election commissioners to be removed by the President on the recommendation of Chief Election Commissioner. Now let us understand the power and the functions of the Election Commission. The first is to conduct elections of the President, Vice President, members of the Parliament and of the state legislature. Second, to prepare, revise and update electoral roll for the above mentioned elections. Next, to fix the election expenses. Then to prescribe a code of conduct for the political parties, candidates as well as for the voters. Delimitation of the constituencies, registration of the political parties, allocation of symbols, recognition of political parties, national party and state party. These all work are being done by the Election Commission. Now let us understand the next concept, that is the Representation of People's Act 1950. This act provides for, first, the qualification and disqualification of the voters, allocation of seats in the Lok Sabha and state legislature, the delimitation of the constituencies for the purpose of election for the Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly, and preparation of electoral roll for the election of the member of the parliament as well as the state legislature. There is another representation of People's Act in 1951 which were having some more provisions, like first the qualification as well as the disqualification for the MPs and the member of state legislature. Second, the actual conduct of election. And third, the administrative machinery required for the conduct of election, under which we can understand this: the general duties of the chief electoral officer, the appointment and duties of the returning officer and the assistant returning officer, the appointment and general duties of the presiding officers and the polling officers. Fourthly, the registration of the political parties. Fifth, to resolve the disputes regarding election. Sixth, to the corrupt practices. And the seventh one is the electoral offences. Now let us discuss about the electoral reforms initiated in India, or we can say the Representation of People Amendment Act 1989. The punishment for the electoral offences like booth capturing, carrying of arms and distribution of liquor within the 100 yards of the polling booth was prescribed, under which 3 years of imprisonment was given for the officials, whereas for the non-official it was for the 1 year. Next, there was another Representation of People's Amendment Act in 1996, in which the punishment for the above mentioned electoral offences was increased, and it was increased for 2 more years, means 5 years for the imprisonment of the officials, whereas for non-officials it was for 3 years. Secondly, a person convicted under the Insult to National Honour Act 1971 and for crime against women to be disqualified from contesting the election for 6 years from the date of conviction. And thirdly, a person not to contest elections from more than 2 constituencies. Next is the Representation of Amendment Act of 2010. It amended the Representation of People's Act 1950, and the NRI were given right to vote in elections. Some other electoral reforms initiated in the country, like to check impersonation, the voters' ID card scheme has been launched. The Model Code of Conduct comes into force as soon as the election dates are announced. The EVMs, the VVPAT, which is the Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trial, were also introduced. The civil servants of the state came under the jurisdiction commission during the election times. Next, the deployment of the central forces during the elections. And the last one is the appointment of observers by the election commission during the election. Now let us discuss about our second last topic, that is tribunals. Tribunals are the quasi-judicial bodies consists of members of judiciary as well as experts. The need for tribunals was felt to overcome the situation that arose due to the pendency of cases and the various courts. The tribunals were set up to reduce the workload of the court, to expedite the decisions, to provide a forum which could be manned by the judges and the experts in the area falling under the jurisdiction of the tribunal. The tribunals perform specialized role in justice mechanism. They hear specific disputes related to taxes, environment, armed forces, administrative issues like service conditions, removal of officers, etc. The tribunal is mentioned in the part 14A of Constitution, and it has basically two articles are there. First is article number 323 clause A, which provides for administrative tribunals. Parliament has been authorized. And second, it's the article number 323 clause B. It provides for the other purposes. Now let us discuss about the last topic for today, and that is about the schedules. The first schedule is the name of the state and union territory, and we have to understand which are the states which were reformed after 1956, which were created after that. Next is schedule number 2, provisions related to the president, governor, presiding officers of the legislatures, judges of Supreme Court, high courts, and comptroller and auditor general. Next is the schedule number 3. They are the forms of the oaths. The oath of the president is not mentioned in this schedule. A minister of the union and of the state takes oath of office as well as for the secrecy. Next is schedule number 4, where the representation of states in Rajya Sabha. Schedule number 5, provisions as to administration and control of the scheduled area and scheduled tribe, which is explained under the article number 244. This schedule will not include the scheduled area of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. Executive power of the state extend to the scheduled area. The governor of each state having scheduled area has to annually or whenever required by the president has to submit a report regarding the administration of the scheduled area in the state. Next is there shall be established in each state having scheduled area a scheduled advisory council consisting of maximum 20 members. Next, the governor they make regulation for the peace and the good governance in the scheduled areas. And the last one is the president may by order declare an area as the scheduled area. Next is schedule number 6. It has the provisions as to the administration of the tribal areas in the state of Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram. Schedule number 7, it deals with the 3 lists, which are the union, state and concurrent. Schedule number 8 deals with the languages, and schedule number 9 deals with the First Amendment Act, contains a list of central and state laws which cannot be challenged in the court. Next is schedule number 10, which is the anti-defection law. Schedule number 11 is the power and responsibilities of municipality, and the last schedule, which is the schedule number 12, which has the power and responsibility of the Panchayati Raj institution. Now the part 16 is the article number 330. It is the reservation of seats for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes in the Lok Sabha. Article number 330 clause A, it is the reservation of seats for the women in the Lok Sabha. Article number 332 is the reservation for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the State Legislative Assembly. Article number 332A, reservation of women in the Legislative Assembly. Article number 338 is the National Commission for the Scheduled Caste. Article number 338A deals with the National Commission for the Scheduled Tribe. Article number 338B deals with the National Commission for the for the backward classes, and 334 deals with the scheduled caste. The president, in consultation with the governor, specify the castes, races, or tribes which shall be deemed to be scheduled castes in relation to that state or union territory. Article number 342 is for the scheduled tribes. The President, with the consultation with the governor, specify the tribes of the tribal community which shall be deemed to be the scheduled tribe in the relation to that state. Part 17, which has Article number 343, Clause 1. Official language of the Union is Hindi in Devanagari script. Article number 345, the legislature of the state may by law adopt any one or more of the languages used in the state or Hindi as official language. Article number 350A, facilities of the instructions in mother tongue at primary state. Article number 351 is directive for the development of Hindi language, and the article number 393 is the short of titles. By this I am concluding my video, and this is my last video for this series. Thank you.